Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
Gradually, Zhou Zhou's eyes lit up with interest. The upper limit of a demon hunter was very high and took shape very quickly. This was something he valued very much. Its so-called shortcoming was actually caused by the incompatibility between the life-form bloodline and the demon bloodline. Demon hunters had a short lifespan because it was not completely compatible. There was a chance that they would be devoured by the demon bloodline and become a demon dweller. However, this was not a problem for Zhou Zhou. This was because he was a chaos human. The optimization ability of the chaos human bloodline could completely optimize the shortcomings of these demon bloodlines. In addition, his chaos human bloodline could be infinitely compatible with other bloodlines. Other demon hunters could only fuse 1 or 2 demon bloodlines and had to worry about conflict between them. However, Zhou Zhou could fuse with countless types of demon bloodlines and obtain many demon abilities without worrying about hidden dangers. The most painful problem to the demon hunters could be completely ignored by Zhou Zhou. Therefore, if Zhou Zhou chose to become a demon hunter, he would definitely be the perfect demon hunter. As long as I level up the full-time master of the battle god again, I can completely take on another demon hunter profession. Zhou Zhou thought to himself. It had to be said. He was very tempted. This demon hunter was too compatible with the chaos human bloodline. It was simply like an extraordinary tier class specially designed for the chaos human bloodline. It was second only to the chi practitioner he had now. Do you know what to do if I want to become a demon hunter? Thinking of this, Zhou Zhou asked Gerton. Gerton was stunned. He could feel that His Majesty had an extremely strong class aura on him. Why did His Majesty ask such a question? Your Majesty, the future troubles of becoming a demon hunter are extremely dangerous. You have a noble status. It's best not to be too involved with the profession of a demon hunter. Gerton tried his best to dissuade him tactfully. Zhou Zhou was not angry and chuckled. Gerton could only choose to believe His Majesty's words. Then, he nodded and said that he knew the way to become a demon hunter. Zhou Zhou nodded. He was a little happy. He now had 3 bloodlines that could be upgraded indefinitely. Vampire bloodline, 10,000 Gu race bloodline, abyssal demon bloodline. He already had a way to obtain the first 2. The latter was even easier. The Night Temple itself led straight to the front line of the abyss. If he suggested to the Night Temple that he wanted to go to the abyss to conquer it, the other party would almost have no chance of refusing with his importance in the eyes of the Night Temple. After thinking this through, Zhou Zhou stopped chatting. After getting someone to arrange the residence and work of these new subjects, he led his troops to the monster ranch to clean up and retrieve the loots. As Mu Gu did not add a new monster ranch, the loot obtained today was similar to yesterday. Among the most important mist cores, he had obtained a total of 18.2 million green bronze tier mist cores, 11 million white silver tier mist cores, 7.2 million yellow gold tier mist cores, 6.33 million white platinum tier mist cores, 2,417,000 diamond tier mist cores, and 88,000 extraordinary tier mist cores. In terms of soldier type class change and recruitment books, he obtained a total of more than 14 million soldier type class change certificates, 1,375,000 King of Yellow Gold recruitment books, 161,000 Poison Crossbow Soldier recruitment books, 960 Elemental Archer recruitment books, 249,987 Aurora Cavalry recruitment books, 3 million Violent Storm Spirit recruitment books. As for the other loots, they were not very precious and important, so it was pointless to mention. Zhou Zhou was very satisfied with so many gains. After all, there were more than 4 million soldier-type recruitment books. He did not waste any time. He brought so many recruitment books to the Gate of Summoning and spent the Mist Corps to recruit all the new recruits. Zhou Zhou looked at the 4 million new recruits in front of him and subconsciously smiled. Some of these recruits had a total of 14,962,460 soldiers under his command. Coupled with the more than 8.4 million soldiers of the Star Alliance Masters, the total number of troops under his command had already exceeded 20 million, reaching the terrifying number of 23.4 million soldiers. This number happened to be the number of people of foreign races from the previous 16 countries. It was also worth mentioning that the Lords of the Star Alliance had all participated in the ceremony yesterday because it was the founding ceremony, so they did not go out to instigate with their insight defection. Even though he had wasted a day of insight defection, it was only a day. 20% of his military might only be hundreds of thousands of soldiers. In addition, yesterday was a special day, so Zhou Zhou did not pay much attention to it. After cleaning up the monster ranch, Zhou Zhou did not do anything else. Instead, he let the soldiers rest for a while and quietly waited for the King of 10,000 Kings event to begin. Taking advantage of this time, Zhou Zhou first opened the Kingdom channel to see the reactions of the subjects and the Star Alliance masters. In the end, he realized that none of his subjects or the Lords of the Star Alliance were afraid of the upcoming King of 10,000 Kings event. They even looked forward to it so that their insight defection could show its might. Zhou Zhou smiled when he saw this. His insight defection Lord talent was indeed a good talent. In just a few days, these life lords who were previously afraid of war had actually become like this. Then, he opened the World Channel. The Lords of the World Channel were much more pessimistic. So many Cerulean planet lords died in the previous myriad races Lord Battlefield. I wonder if I'll die this time. Don't be pessimistic, brothers. The event hasn't begun yet. We can't look down on ourselves first. Gather our courage first. To be honest, what you fight on the battlefield is true strength. Courage is useful, but not much. Big Boss Blazing Sun became #1 in the last event. Do you think he can still become #1 in this event? I don't think that's possible. Do they really think that lords from top-notch race forces are useless? We can't even imagine the foundation of their race civilization. In the Cerulean planet civilization, the racial civilization with the longest duration without interruption has only been around for 5,000 years. How can this compare to those racial civilizations that have developed for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of years? I think the Lord of the Blazing Sun was only lucky to obtain first place last time. Lucky? I laughed. Let me see if you're lucky. His Majesty is still capable. I'm a Lord of the Star Alliance. Don't think that you can say whatever you want just because you're talking on the World Channel. If you dare to badmouth our Majesty, be careful that we will find you one day. Zhou Zhou looked at the World Channel calmly and thought of the top lords of the original spirit race and the others he had encountered previously. He shook his head and stopped thinking about it. At this moment, a line of golden text suddenly appeared in front of Zhou Zhou. All the lords of all races, and even the local lords. Supreme will notification. The King of 10,000 Kings event is about to begin. Lords, please be prepared. Zhou Zhou could not help but perk up when he saw the notification. The King of 10,000 Kings event had finally begun. A new activity notification appeared before he could react. I'll begin to announce the introduction and rules of the King of 10,000 Kings event now. King of 10,000 Kings event description. After the Supreme will lead the lords of all races to the myriad race battlefield. While the Crimson Overlord did not care about the power of the new lords, it still strengthened its attack on the lord factions under the Supreme will. It wanted to take down the local lord factions as quickly as possible and then turn to destroy the lords of all races. Under the attack of the endless Scarlet Lord forces, the local lord forces of the myriad worlds were under extreme pressure. No egg is unbroken when the nest is overturned. The lords of all races needed to do their best to help the local lord factions survive this crisis in the full offensive of the Scarlet Lord faction this time. Only then could they extend their development time and accumulate more stronger factions before the true Scarlet Crisis erupted. In order to let the lords of all races participate in the battle with all their might and to select outstanding lords, the Supreme will specially launch this King of 10,000 Kings event. The following are the specific rules of the event. Specific Event Rule 1. In this King of 10,000 Kings event, the lords of all races can temporarily join any kingdom or empire faction to fight the Crimson Kingdom or the Crimson Empire under the Crimson Overlord. Specific Event Rule 2. Lords of all races who join the Kingdom faction/Empire faction can obtain the corresponding faction points and other rewards by completing the corresponding faction quests. Those who perform well in the war can obtain additional achievements, which is equivalent to a different number of faction points. Specific Event Rule 3. This event has two rankings, the Kingdom/Empire Camp ranking and the Lord of All Races Camp ranking. The former covers all the lords of all races who join the Kingdom/Empire Camp. The latter is only limited to the lords of a single race who have the most points. Specific Event Rule 3. After the event ends, the lords of all races ranked first on the Kingdom/Empire faction point ranking can obtain the Legendary/Mythical Tier King title reward, 1 Extraordinary Tier Advanced Grade Kingdom token, 100 to 1, 000 Reputation Rating reward, and Faction reward. The lords of all races ranked first on the Lord's faction point ranking could obtain the highest level Permanent King of 10,000 Kings title reward, 1 Kingdom token with special abilities, 100,000 Reputation Rating points, 10 Mythical Reputation Rating points, Faction reward, and 1 Mythical Treasure Chest reward. Specific Event Rule 4. In this event, the lords of all races can choose to join many non-hostile kingdoms, but they need a certain level of diplomacy. Specific Event Rule 5. This event will last for a month. After a month, the 330th Supreme Army will descend on the myriad races battlefield and repel all the invading Scarlet Lord forces. Special hint: during the event, a King of 10,000 Kings function icon will be added to the function list of the lords. You can click on this icon through your consciousness and obtain specific activity information. The King of 10,000 Kings function icon has been added to your Lord function list. You can choose to join a designated faction in the corresponding function. Zhou Zhou read it twice and had a rough idea. He opened the Lord function. As expected, he found the function icon of the King of 10,000 Kings. On the rightmost side of the Lord's personal information, Cerulean Planet Lord's Marketplace, Reputation Ranking, Friend List, and Virtual Lord Battlefield. He opened the icon and looked at it. There were 4 options inside. They were Join the Faction, Faction Quests, Achievement List, and Faction Points Ranking. Zhou Zhou clicked on Join the Faction. In the end, he realized that there was a large number of factions he could join. Among them, the first place was Human Race, Night Empire, Friendly. The second was Elves, Elven Empire, Friendly. Behind them were some Kingdom-level Lord factions and Empire-level Lord factions at the Diplomacy level, Initial Acquaintance. Zhou Zhou took a rough look. He realized that they were all Lord factions of the human race. He thought for a moment and remembered. Previously, he had participated in a dinner party invited by the Night Temple. During that dinner party, he had gotten to know many human big shots. Behind these human big shots seemed to be these kingdoms and empires. I didn't expect to establish diplomatic relations after just a meal. Those human big shots really care about me, Zhou Zhou thought. Then, his gaze landed on the top 2 Lord factions. Among them, the human race, Night Empire, was one of the most important forces to establish the Night Temple. Not only was it one of the only 5 empires of the human race, the Lord of the Night Temple, by he, was also from the Night Empire. With the relationship with the Night Temple, Zhou Zhou was not surprised that the Night Empire had friendly, diplomatic relations with the Blazing Sun Kingdom. After all, the Night Temple and the Night Empire had sent people to participate in the founding ceremony yesterday and had even given them quite expensive gifts. What surprised Zhou Zhou was his diplomatic relations with the Elven Empire. He had not interacted much with the Elven Empire other than Nadia. He did not expect their diplomatic relations to have already reached the level of friendliness. Zhou Zhou was even more surprised when he thought of how Nadia had given the Elven Mother Tree's sacred leaf on behalf of the Elven Empress. That Elven Empress really values me. Most of this friendly diplomacy level was probably contributed by the Elven Empress. Zhou Zhou thought for a moment and clicked to join these 2 factions. As for the factions with initial acquaintance, Zhou Zhou had no intention of joining for the time being. There was a limited time for the event, and his military strength was also limited. It was impossible for him to invest all his military strength in every country to complete their faction mission. He could only obtain the greatest benefits if he gathered all his forces on the 2 national factions with the highest diplomatic relations. It would not be too late to join the other factions to dig up faction quests after excavating the quests of these two empire factions. Text notifications appear one after another. You have chosen to join the Elven Empire faction. Applying. You have chosen to join the Human Knight Empire camp. Applying. He still had to apply? Zhou Zhou did not think too much about it and prepared to wait for a while. However, in less than 2 to 3 seconds, a new text notification appeared. The Elven Empire has approved your application. You have successfully joined this empire's camp. There is an additional Elven Empire camp channel added to your channel. Spatial teleportation array, Elven Empire, has been established. The Human Knight Empire has approved your application. You have successfully joined this empire's camp. There is an additional Knight Empire camp channel added to your channel. The spatial teleportation array, Knight Empire, has been established. Zhou Zhou was stunned. Already? He didn't think too much about it and felt that it might be the same for every country. However, what Zhou Zhou did not know was that most of the Cerulean planet lords had yet to have the chance to establish diplomatic relations with kingdom-level lord factions or empire-level lord factions because they had only been in the High Continent for a short period of time. Therefore, after they opened the Join the Faction function, they suddenly realized that there were no factions they could join. Only a small number of Cerulean planet lords who chose to go out to see the forces of local lords at the early stage of the territory's development were lucky enough to reach the diplomatic relations conditions and join the kingdom or empire faction. However, even so, these Cerulean planet lords did not receive replies for a long time after choosing to join the faction. Especially the lords who chose the empire camp. Due to the huge territory of the empire's camp, the lord factions of the lord of all races neighboring it could be said to be vast. The number of lords who joined was countless. Therefore, after they chose to join, they did not obtain the approval of the application for a long time. They would only be considered after a while. Unlike Zhou Zhou, he joined in less than 2 to 3 seconds. It could be seen how much these two empires valued Zhou Zhou. In this King of 10,000 Kings event, the selection and removal hidden rule that was not described had already begun from the moment he joined the faction. Speaking of which, Zhou Zhou opened the World Channel. As expected, he discovered 2 new channels on the right side of the World Channel and the Kingdom Channel. They were the Elven Empire Camp Channel and Knight Empire Camp Channel. Zhou Zhou looked at the 2 channels curiously. Even though these 2 channels had just been established, dozens of Lord comments had already appeared. Praise the great Elven Empire. After the Supreme will announce this event, the first thing I thought of was to serve the Empire, to serve Her Majesty the Empress. Therefore, I was the first to come. TSK, I just wanted to give it a try. I didn't expect it to really succeed. Wow, so many lords have joined so quickly. I thought I was the first. I'm the second to arrive. The first is the Lord of the Blazing Sun. You know who he is even without me saying anything, right? F*CK. The strongest lord of all races from the last event. He actually joined our Elven Empire. The tiny human lord should admire our Elven Empire very much, so he joined our Elven Empire immediately after the faction appeared. At Blazing Sun Kingdom, Lord of the Blazing Sun. Big Boss, how did you defeat so many top-notch lords of races and become the strongest lord of all races? How did you build a kingdom so quickly? Can you tell me? Zhou Zhou looked at the dozens of comments in confusion. He never expected that he would be mentioned even though he was only diving. However, he had no intention of replying. But at this moment, another line of comments appeared. Original Elven Empress Elizariel, I've added you as a friend. Accept it. The camp channel was filled with ellipses mixed with bold question marks. Zhou Zhou was also stunned. Then, he hurriedly opened the friend request and found the Elven Empress friend request. Then, he chose to accept it. Blazing Sun Kingdom, Lord of the Blazing Sun. Accepted. Original Elven Empress, Elizariel. Okay. Then, she sent a private message. Original Elven Empress, Elizariel. When will you come over? Blazing Sun Kingdom, Lord of the Blazing Sun. I'm preparing to go over soon. Original Elven Empress, Delizariel. Okay, come straight to the Imperial Palace when you arrive. I'll tell you about our enemy. Blazing Sun Kingdom. Lord of the Blazing Sun. All right. The other party stopped sending messages. Zhou Zhou was a little stunned. He still did not dare to believe that this existence who spoke so casually and generously was actually the supreme ruler of the Elven Empire. Her tone was as natural as asking him to go over for lunch. Zhou Zhou scratched his head. Even though he was a little surprised by this Empress personality, it was not a bad thing to be so easygoing with. At this moment, he realized that there was also someone at him on the Night Empire Camp channel. He opened it and realized that the person who had tagged him was a knight called Alina. Alina, King of the Blazing Sun. I'm the daughter of the Lord of the Night Empire. You can call me Alina Andorra. Alina, please accept my friend request. I have something to discuss with you. After she finished speaking, the Night Empire Camp channel was also in chaos. No one expected the daughter of the dignified Empire Lord to take the initiative to contact a lord of all races. However, everyone understood after knowing the identity and background of the Lord of the Blazing Sun. Then, they felt envious. Zhou Zhou clicked his tongue. He did not say much and directly approved the other party's friend request. He also told the other party that he would go to them to discuss the specific war after he dealt with his matters. With the help of these two important figures of the Empire, I should be included in the faction quests. Zhou Zhou was also a little happy when he thought about how these two big shots had taken the initiative to interact. With these two layers of relationship, perhaps he could receive some faction quests with high faction points. This was undoubtedly extremely beneficial to him, increasing the ranking of the faction and even fighting for the title of King of 10,000 Kings. At this moment, Bai Yun walked towards him. At the same time, Wu Tu and 9 heroes followed behind her. 3 of the heroes were heroes from the Aurora Kingdom. The other 6 heroes were all new faces. Greetings, Your Majesty. They immediately said respectfully to Zhou Zhou when they arrived. There's no need to be so polite. Get up. Zhou Zhou chuckled. When the heroes heard this, they stood up respectfully. I'm the Dark Spirit Mage, Sun Yu. Thank you for resurrecting me, Your Majesty. I have nothing to repay you. I can only pledge my loyalty to Your Majesty with my old, weak, sickly, and disabled body. Sun Yu shakily walked out of the heroes and thanked Zhou Zhou. He was wearing a dark black cloak and holding a dark black staff. His entire body emitted a dark aura. There were many wrinkles on his face. With a pair of glasses on his eyes, he did not look like an unholy mage at all. Instead, he had the temperament of an old pedant. I've long heard that you sacrificed yourself for the Snow River City, so I've always yearned and admired you. A mere resurrection is nothing. Old sir, there's no need to mention it. In the future, you can work in the Blazing Sun Kingdom in peace. Zhou Zhou smiled. Yes, my lord, Sun Yu said solemnly. Then, he retreated. After he retreated to the team, the 2 heroes beside him also stood up. They were the other 2 heroes of the original Aurora Kingdom. After they stood up, they explained to Zhou Zhou that they had already joined the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Zhou Zhou smiled and nodded. It seemed that the lobbyist he sent out was really good. He had actually invited all 3 heroes of the Aurora Kingdom to the Blazing Sun Kingdom and became his subjects. After the 2 of them finished speaking, the other 6 new heroes also stood up and bowed respectfully to Zhou Zhou. Among the 6 heroes, 3 of the heroes were heroes who had obtained the 3 hero inheritance secret manuals in the military merit exchange system with their achievements. As for the other 3 heroes, they were heroes created by the 3 hero inheritance manuals he had obtained from the 3 heroes of the people of foreign races he had killed outside the capital yesterday. Zhou Zhou looked at the 9 new heroes in front of him and the smile on his face deepened. With these 9 new heroes, the number of heroes under his command had already reached 44. This number was already comparable to the total number of heroes in 11 normal beginner kingdoms. With so many heroes around, he could have a higher chance of increasing his ranking in the face of the King of 10,000 Kings event that had just begun. At this moment, Wu Tu walked over and said respectfully and shamefully, Your Majesty, I've already absorbed the book of the God Spirit you rewarded me. Wu Tu never expected this. He, who had made a huge mistake at the founding ceremony, was actually received by His Majesty on the same night. Not only that, but he was also personally given the incomparably precious inheritance of the Book of the God Spirit by His Majesty. This was an honor that even Bai Yun, Wu Xian, and the other veterans had not obtained. He actually obtained it first. This made him both grateful and terrified. Zhou Zhou looked at the grateful and terrified expression on Wu Tu's face and sighed softly. Even though you were indeed at a disadvantage in patrolling yesterday, the other party is too strong. It's not all your fault. Then the Ice Demon God, Bai Yi's God Spirit inheritance is somewhat compatible with your own hero inheritance. Use it in peace. If you don't want to disappoint me, become a god as soon as possible. Zhou Zhou said. Yes, Your Majesty. Wu Tu nodded vigorously. The heavenly army under his command already had a large number of high-level cartographers. He did not need to do the mapping himself every time he went out. As a leader and one of the heroes of the Blazing Sun Kingdom, it was indeed time for him to increase his strength. The strength of a diamond tier advanced grade was indeed not enough to convince the masses in front of other domestic heroes who were all extraordinary tier and epic tier. Zhou Zhou did not say anything. He only patted his shoulder and asked him to leave. Then, he opened the Kingdom channel and entered a small group composed of all the Lord components of the Star Alliance. He was naturally the group leader of this small group. Alliance Master at everyone, no one has chosen a faction yet, right? Hundreds of replies immediately appeared below. No. I'm ashamed. There's no faction to choose from among my faction options. I do have one, but I don't really want to go. That's a goblin kingdom. The goblins inside are a group of people who bully the weak and fear the strong. F***CK, if I join their faction, I probably won't have any chance of obtaining faction points. At that time, I'll be too unjustifiable if they drag me down and destroy my country with them. +1. I think so too. Unfortunately, even though His Majesty has established a kingdom, it's not a local faction. It's not in the faction option. That's right. Follow His Majesty. +1. +2. +11. 111. Zhou Zhou looked at the Lord's replies and nodded in satisfaction. It seemed that his Lord's subordinates were not rash people. They did not rashly choose to join any available factions as soon as the event began. He began to type, Alliance Master, bring your soldiers to the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Then, I'll bring you to the two empires to see if you can get to initial acquaintance, diplomatic relations. If you succeed, you can accept the faction quest together. As soon as he sent the messages, the Lords of the Star Alliance cheered. His Majesty is really strong. He directly got us to cozy up to two empire factions. I'm so happy. Fortunately, I didn't choose the Goblin Kingdom. Long live His Majesty. Long live the Alliance Master. Alliance Master, keep a low profile. Then, he asked Bai Yun to get the soldiers to prepare. At the same time, when the Lords of the Star Alliance brought their troops over, they would govern the soldiers together. Then, he called Qi Xintian and Su into a school ground and waited for the Star Alliance masters to arrive. The lords came over. Your Majesty. Greetings, Your Majesty. Your Majesty, we're here. After the lords arrived, they surrounded Zhou Zhou and said respectfully and excitedly, Have you arranged for the soldiers? Zhou Zhou looked at them and asked, It's all arranged. Legion Commander Bai has already taken over. Don't worry, Your Majesty. Your Majesty, when do we set off? There's no time to lose. Let's set off now. Zhou Zhou heard the questions from the crowd and said with a faint smile. Then, he led everyone and followed his senses. Soon, they arrived at the two spatial teleportation arrays. What a huge spatial teleportation array. How many people will be teleported this time? This teleportation array is so majestic it is indeed a spatial teleportation array worthy of being connected to an empire's camp. Did you see that? The ability of this spatial teleportation array is a little awesome. I'm suddenly a little cowardly. Do you think we'll be ambushed and be wiped out all at once when we get there? It shouldn't be, right? The Lords of the Star Alliance could not help but exclaim when they saw the two spatial teleportation arrays in front of them. Zhou Zhou said nothing. He was also looking at the two spatial teleportation arrays. These two spatial teleportation arrays occupied an extremely vast area. Each spatial teleportation array was actually tens of thousands of square kilometers in size. This area was enough to accommodate tens of millions of soldiers for teleportation. Zhou Zhou focused on one of the spatial teleportation arrays. A text notification appeared. Formation name: Spatial Teleportation Array, Night Empire. Formation level: Special level. Formation effect: Super Teleportation. All subjects and resources of the lords of all races within the range of the formation can be teleported to the territory of the Night Empire at any time through the spatial teleportation array. She could also teleport back from the spatial teleportation array in the territory of the Kingdom Camp/Empire Camp, but the life forms of the Kingdom Camp/Empire Camp could not come to the territory of the Lord of all races through this spatial teleportation array. The energy consumed for teleportation is provided by the Supreme Will. Formation description: the exclusive spatial teleportation array for the King of 10,000 Kings event. It will automatically disappear after the King of 10,000 Kings event ends. He looked at the other spatial teleportation array. It was the Elven Empire's spatial teleportation array. What a pity. It will actually disappear after the event. I thought I could freeload two spatial teleportation arrays. Zhou Zhou muttered in his heart. The effects of these two exclusive Empire Camp spatial teleportation arrays could not be said to be weak. Not only was the area extremely vast, it could teleport a large number of soldiers and supplies at once. Most importantly, teleportation of this level was actually free. The Supreme Will was in charge of the teleportation energy. It could be seen how much the Supreme Will valued this event. He turned to look at the Lords of the Star Alliance who were discussing and communicating with each other. He heard some special voices from it. Afraid that we would be wiped out all at once after teleporting over? Zhou Zhou was a little stunned. Then, he reacted. Well, these guys still did not know about his diplomatic relations with these two empires. It was normal for them to be a little worried about an unknown teleportation trip. He had neglected this aspect, so he did not hesitate and opened the page with his diplomatic relations between the two empires. Then, he took a screenshot and sent it to the group, telling everyone not to worry. With diplomatic relations of this level, there would basically be no danger if he teleported over, unless there was an especially big accident. Even if there was really danger, Zhou Zhou also had a trump card that could send them and him back safely. Everyone, come up. Let's set off for the Night Empire first. Zhou Zhou stopped thinking about it. After he finished speaking, he was the first to step onto this spatial teleportation array. Qi Xintian and Suan followed closely behind. The other Lords of the Star Alliance boldly walked up when they saw this night. After all the lords walked up, Zhou Zhou chanted teleportation in his heart. The next second, the entire spatial teleportation array suddenly emitted a silver light that soared into the sky before gradually disappearing. Zhou Zhou and the others also disappeared. Newland Military Fortress of the Night Empire. When Zhou Zhou and the others left the darkness and saw their surroundings again, they realized that they had already arrived at a huge military fortress. The entire military fortress looked a little old, but it gave off an indestructible feeling. Most of the people walking on the streets were weathered soldiers. The rest were ordinary subjects. However, if one took a closer look, they would discover that these subjects had an extremely good relationship with the soldiers. They looked like either relatives or good friends. Rows and rows of cavalrymen were gathered around the spatial teleportation array. He took a rough look. There were nearly 10,000 cavalrymen. At this moment, they also discovered the phenomenon of the spatial teleportation array and saw Zhou Zhou and the others. Then, one of them, who was clearly a general, quickly rode over with a team of soldiers. Greetings, everyone. After this general came over, he immediately jumped off his horse and said with a smile. Then, his eyes quickly landed on Zhou Zhou's face, and his eyes lit up. He looked at the humans beside him who were basically above the intermediate level, and felt that his guess might be right. You're the king of the Blazing Sun Kingdom, right? As expected of someone who possesses celestial appearance. These subjects of yours are all dragons and phoenixes among men. He smiled in surprise. Even though the Night Empire he was in was quite far from the Blazing Sun Kingdom, he also heard many legends about him as the Lord of the Blazing Sun's many achievements and rumors spread. Among them, the rumor that one could become better looking by joining the Blazing Sun Kingdom was the most unreliable one he felt. Become good looking after joining a kingdom? How is that possible? It sounded like a lie deliberately made up to attract the refugees from the outside world to join. However, later on, as more and more cases of people becoming handsome and beautiful spread back to the empire, he was already a little swayed even though he still did not believe it in the depths of his heart. He saw Zhou Zhou and his subjects' astounded faces and thought of the previous legend. He immediately guessed that the person who came was the human lord of the Blazing Sun who had defeated the lord of all races and obtained the title of the strongest lord of all races. That's me. Zhou Zhou nodded. He looked at him. With his epic tier elementary grade strength and the super sixth senses of the chaos human race, he could see through the other party's strength even without relying on his attribute panel. Legendary tier elementary grade. This general's strength was shockingly at the legendary tier elementary grade. Zhou Zhou raised his eyebrows slightly. The Night Empire was really efficient. They actually sent experts of this level and a group of subordinates to protect this spatial teleportation array in such a short period of time. Princess Alina has been waiting for you for a long time. Please follow me. The general said politely just as Zhou Zhou was surprised by the other party's efficiency and looked at him. Even though he looked normal on the surface, he was secretly surprised. What happened? From the looks of it, the other party was only an epic tier elementary grade lord of all races. Even though such strength was already unbelievable in the strength of the lords of all races, he should be nothing to him, a legendary tier elementary grade expert with experience. Why did he actually feel a sense of danger from him that made him tremble in fear? It was as if the other party could kill him with a flick of his finger. Could it be? Was the rumor that this Lord of the Blazing Sun's astonishing combat strength true? But no matter how real it was, it shouldn't be so strong, right? The general realized that he really could not understand the young man in front of him. Zhou Zhou could vaguely sense what the other party was thinking. However, he did not say anything. Please lead the way, he said. Please follow me. As for your subordinates, the general nodded and looked at the people behind him, his meaning self-evident. Qi Xintian, follow me. Suan, stay behind and follow Linger and the others. General, please arrange a place for them to rest for the time being. Is that convenient? Zhou Zhou asked after making the arrangements. Of course. Sure. Zhou Zhou nodded and led Qi Xintian to follow the general towards Princess Alina's palace. Suan followed the other lords of the Star Alliance and another soldier in another direction. Zhou Zhou was not worried about their safety. This was because he had been careful and placed a bloodbat avatar on Suan before he left. This way, he would be able to know immediately if anything happened to him. Then, he would rush over immediately or directly activate his Lord talent. Return to the city to bring them back to the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Jade Sun Hall. This was a temporary palace. Zhou Zhou and Qi Xintian walked into the palace under the lead of the general and quickly saw Princess Alina. Even though this princess name was a little westernized, she had the beautiful face of an Eastern beauty. Her hands were soft and her skin was smooth. Her collarbones were obvious and she had a delicate head and moth-like eyebrows. She smiled sweetly with her pearly white teeth and looked forward. In terms of appearance, she was not inferior to the top beauty, Li Ya. However, there was clearly something different between the two of them. Li Ya had the heroic bearing of a princess of a large country. On the other hand, the other party had a noble and ethereal feeling. This temperament, Zhou Zhou and Qi Xintian looked at each other. A Qi practitioner. This princess of the empire with a westernized name was also a Qi practitioner like them? Zhou Zhou reacted in time. What was so strange about this? She was the princess of an empire and controlled countless human resources. Wasn't it simple to obtain the Qi practitioner class change certificate and high-level chi refinement cultivation technique? General Hu Lu, take your men and leave. I want to talk to this king of the blazing sun alone. At this moment, Alina's voice sounded like a yellow oriole's soft cry. Yes, your highness. General Hu Lu, who had brought Zhou Zhou and the other two over, said without hesitation. Then, he turned around and left. You should leave too. I'll have a good chat with this princess. Zhou Zhou said to Qi Xintian. Qi Xintian did not hesitate and turned to leave. The publicly acknowledged number one in combat strength in the Blazing Sun Kingdom was not him, but his majesty. He would indeed be in the way if he continued staying here. After the two of them left the palace with the others, only Zhou Zhou and Princess Alina were left in the hall. I wonder why your highness asked me to stay alone. Zhou Zhou took the initiative to ask. Princess Alina looked at Zhou Zhou under the hall in a daze. So handsome. She subconsciously thought. So this is the celestial appearance? In the past, she had only heard of such an existence from her mother. She thought that it was just a legend. She did not expect to really see it. Moreover, this was the first time she had seen it in reality. It could actually make one's heart race. This guy is even better looking than what mother described. She thought to herself. Her heart beat faster again. It was a feeling he had never experienced before. Your Highness? Seeing that the other party did not speak for a long time, Zhou Zhou spoke again. Cough, cough. I heard that the subjects who join your kingdom will become even better looking. Is that true? Alina blurted out. Zhou Zhou. Zhou Zhou did not expect this to be the first question the princess of an empire would ask him. Everyone loves beauty. It is indeed the ancient truth. Yes. Zhou Zhou nodded and admitted it. I really want to see your magical territory. Princess Alina's eyes were filled with curiosity and yearning as she sighed. With the strength of the Night Empire, there will always be a chance when Her Highness is free in the future. Zhou Zhou smiled. The spatial teleportation array between them could only teleport the lords of all races to the territory of the Empire's camp, but it could not allow people from the Empire's camp to head to the Lord's territory. It could be seen that this was a measure specially set up by the Supreme Will to protect the lords of all races, preventing them from being overtaken by the local lord faction. When I'm free. Princess Alina shook her head with a sigh. She didn't say anything else and smiled. Let me reintroduce myself. I live with my king father and the queen mother. For some reason, I have two names. The name that follows my mother is the Alina you're calling now. In addition, I have another name that follows my father. Yuling? Most subjects in the country call me Princess Alina because I live with my mother most of the time. But I won't mind if you want to call me Princess Yuling. Princess Alina or Princess Yuling smiled. Princess Yuling. Zhou Zhou hesitated for a moment and immediately called out this name. The other party had an Eastern face. Even though she had faint mixed blood characteristics, Zhou Zhou still felt that Yuling was more appropriate. Princess Yuling smiled and nodded. This time, the attack of endless scarlet forces swept through the entire high continent covered by all the Lord of all races. In the eyes of the Lords of all races, the Supreme Will calls this incident the King of 10,000 Kings event. And us local kingdoms and empire-level forces learned from the Supreme Will that this matter is a tribulation of all races. Zhou Zhou raised his eyebrows slightly. Princess Yuling was still saying, Our Night Empire has already felt the immense pressure of this calamity on the main battlefield. Do you know how many Scarlet Empires are besieging our Night Empire now? Princess Yuling asked. 3. Zhou Zhou tried to give a number. This was already quite bold in his heart. No, there are 6 of them. Princess Yuling said this shocking number with a solemn expression. This is only an Empire-level Scarlet force. In addition, there are at least 500 Kingdom-level Scarlet Lord factions wandering inside and outside our Night Empire, constantly attacking our Night Empire and the surrounding Empire-level factions and Kingdom-level factions. Right now, there are nearly 1 billion Scarlet monsters fighting constantly around our Night Empire. There are also more than 10 Scarlet God spirits. It can be said that Kingdom-level Lord factions are constantly being destroyed by the Scarlet faction at all times. I'm afraid even the Empire won't be able to last long. The situation is not very good. Zhou Zhou's face turned green. F***CK. You call this situation not very good? Princess Yuling, aren't you too big-hearted? Zhou Zhou had thought that even if he could not be said to be a strong force when he came to these two Empire camps, with the 20 million troops he currently controlled, he could at least be an outstanding leader in the war with the Scarlet faction. In the end, 1 billion Scarlet troops and more than 10 god spirits stunned him. In front of these 1 billion soldiers, the troops led by Zhou Zhou were only a small fry. Not to mention those true god spirits. The reason why he could kill a god last time was more or less because of the advantage of the Absolute Light and the Holy Light Sword, the two law skills. He did not think that he would really be able to fight them fearlessly just because he killed a god spirit by luck. Moreover, Zhou Zhou did not dare to imagine. If the Night Empire was already in such a state, the Elven Empire, which was countless times larger than the Night Empire, was facing the siege of the Crimson Kingdom and the Scarlet Empire. He had thought that joining two Empire factions would be a huge advantage for him. He never expected that there was also so much trouble behind this advantage. If he was not careful, he might die in this event. Is there anything I can do? Zhou Zhou was silent for a while before saying. Since he was here, he would take it easy. Since he had already chosen this place, he should complete the faction quest well. However, he had to be careful next. A battlefield of this level was not something he could do as he pleased. Same old rules. He had to be cautious. Yes. Princess Yuling nodded after hearing Zhou Zhou's words. However, this matter is a little difficult. If you're willing to accept it, I can arrange other quests for you. She said. Tell me about it first. Zhou Zhou did not refuse and asked first. There's a Divine Sword Empire 62.5 billion kilometers away from our Night Empire. That's also one of the 5 great empires of our human race. The tribulation of all races is coming aggressively this time. I'm afraid it's very difficult for one single empire to survive this calamity. Therefore, I want to send you to the Divine Sword Empire to find His Majesty the Sword Emperor and communicate about the cooperation. We wanted to send someone ourselves. However, the Empire is surrounded by scarlet monsters now, and our military strength is stretched thin. We can't spare any extra strength to do this. That's why I want to give you this important task. Princess Yuling said seriously. 62.5 billion kilometers. That's very far. How can I get there? Zhou Zhou frowned. Don't worry about that. At that time, we will give you a map along the way. On the map, the location of the various spatial teleportation arrays will be marked. Through the spatial teleportation array, you and your army can cross billions or even tens of billions of kilometers in a short period of time. It's actually not difficult to reach a distance of more than 60 billion kilometers. The difficult thing is the enemies you will encounter along the way. Princess Yuling said solemnly. We all know the importance of the spatial teleportation array, so the enemy naturally knows. If there are no surprises, those spatial teleportation arrays are either controlled by the enemy or completely destroyed. Retrieving the spatial teleportation array from the enemy is the greatest difficulty of your trip. How is it? Are you willing to accept this mission? Princess Yuling asked. A mission notification that he had not seen in a long time appeared in front of Zhou Zhou as soon as she finished speaking. Night Empire Camp. Princess Yuling has issued you a faction quest. Alliance name. Faraway Divine Sword Empire. Quality of quests. Legendary tier advanced grade. Highest, unique. Quest content. The terrifying enemy of the tribulation of all races makes the Night Empire feel immense pressure. They have no choice but to go out and find allies to seek support. You need to lead your soldiers away from the Night Empire and rush to the Divine Sword Empire to seek help. During this process, you need to snatch back at least 12 legendary tier advanced grade spatial teleportation arrays, 0/12, 26 epic tier advanced grade spatial teleportation arrays, 0/26, 114 extraordinary tier advanced grade spatial teleportation arrays, 0/114, from the Scarlet Lord forces to open the path between the Night Empire and the Divine Sword Empire. allowing the Knight Empire and the Divine Sword Empire to exchange needs and even teleport the army and experts to support and cooperate. If it succeeds, you will obtain the friendship of the two human empires and other huge benefits. However, if you fail, disappointment is inevitable, but you could also lose your life. Please think carefully before making your choice. Mission reward: 100 million faction points, diplomatic relations between the Knight Empire and the Divine Sword Empire to be upgraded to the level of respect, a Death Sword selection opportunity in the Death Sword Demonic Abyss, the loyalty of 10,000 Empire-level combat class, Army Extermination Knights, 1,000 legendary tier mist cores. Prompt: every time you open a spatial teleportation array, you will be rewarded with a portion of faction points. If you choose to give up the quest halfway, this portion of faction points will not be retracted. Zhou Zhou looked at the reward thoughtfully. He looked at the quest and felt a little emotional. A legendary tier advanced grade top-notch quest. There was no higher level faction quest than this. It was really as he had thought. His choice to come to the Empire's camp had indeed brought him great convenience. If he went to a Kingdom/Empire camp that he was unfamiliar with, he might not even be able to stand out from the thousands of lords and obtain the most basic faction quest. Unlike now, a top-notch faction quest was directly sent to him. It was his decision whether to take it or not. He looked at the quest for a while. Finally, his gaze landed on the mission reward and could not help but be tempted. The 100 million faction points alone made him very excited. If he could obtain this amount of faction points, he could completely reach the top of the Empire faction points rankings. He might even be able to enter the top 10 or even the top 3 of the Lord faction points rankings. If the diplomatic relations between the two empires were upgraded to a respectful level, it would also make it easier for him to do many things in these two empires in the future. As for the Death Sword opportunity in the Death Sword Demonic Abyss, even though he did not know much about it, being able to be on the same level with the previous conditions meant it should be an extremely good reward. The loyalty of 10,000 Empire-level combat class, the Army Extermination Knight, was needless to say. Every Army Extermination Knight was an Empire-level combat class. Each of them was an existence that could fight against 10,000 people alone on the battlefield. They could even destroy an army alone. This was also why they were called the Army Extermination Knights. Zhou Zhou only had more than 100 of such terrifying individual combat strength. If he could obtain the loyalty of these 10,000 Army Extermination Knights, his strength would definitely increase. As for the last 1,000 legendary tier mist cores, they were the rewards he did not care about the most. At the thought of this, Zhou Zhou almost wanted to agree to this princess immediately. Fortunately, he still asked two questions carefully and calmly. Your Highness, what if we discover a damaged spatial teleportation array and can't repair it? Don't worry about that. If you decide to take on this mission, we will naturally equip you with the corresponding team of spatial teleportation array maintenance team. At that time, they will be in charge of this. Are there any more questions? Princess Yuling asked. Yes. If we can use these spatial teleportation arrays to travel unimpeded to the Divine Sword Empire and complete the mission before returning, how long do you think it will take? If everything goes smoothly, it will be about 10 days. If it's faster, 7 days might be enough. Princess Yuling thought for a moment and said. Zhou Zhou heaved a sigh of relief. It was fine then. The King of 10,000 Kings event lasted for a month. It was not impossible to spend 7 or 10 days to obtain 100 million faction points. If he encountered trouble that he could not resolve halfway, he would give up on this mission at most. In any case, this quest did not give up the punishment. When the time comes, at most, he would only receive faction points as a reward for opening the spatial teleportation array. I can take this mission, but I want to ask Your Highness for a small favor first. The lords I brought are all lords of the Cerulean planet. They are also my subordinates. I want to bring them along to complete this mission. Can Your Highness raise their diplomatic relations with your country to the extent that they can join the faction? Zhou Zhou said. That's simple. I can do it now. Princess Yuling asked. With that, she closed her eyes. 2 to 3 seconds later, she opened her eyes and looked at Zhou Zhou with a faint smile. It's done. Their external relationship with my Knight Empire has already reached the initial acquaintance level. With such diplomatic relations, they can already join our Knight Empire's faction and accept our Empire's faction quests. Thank you, Your Highness. It's just a small matter. Don't worry. Then, the two of them chatted for more than half an hour about the details of this faction mission. Then, Zhou Zhou left the palace and met up with his subordinates and lords again. Seeing that everyone had successfully joined the Knight Empire's faction, Zhou Zhou sought their assistance for this legendary tier advanced grade faction quest. With this assistance quest, they would also obtain some faction points and some other rewards when they went out with him to complete missions. In addition, even though it was only an assistance quest, it was also an epic tier advanced grade assistance quest. The faction points awarded were also quite shocking, enough for them to surpass the other lords of the myriad races in many factions. Your Majesty, where are we going now? Are we going to do the quest now? The paper immortal lord asked expectantly. There's no hurry. Princess Yuling has to deploy a team of spatial teleportation array maintenance teams before we can set off. Let's go to the Elven Empire first and see if we can also accept a high-yielding faction quest in the Elven Empire. When the time comes, we might be able to do both faction quests together. Zhou Zhou said. No one had any objections. Then, everyone used the spatial teleportation array to return to the back-blazing Sun Kingdom. After they left, Princess Yuling walked out of the palace and looked at the spot where they were. He clearly knew that there would be many dangers on the way to this quest, but he still dared to accept the quest. Is he simply confident or arrogant? She muttered. Whisper City, Elven Empire. The faction's exclusive spatial teleportation array. When Zhou Zhou and the others appeared on the spatial teleportation array, a group of elves wearing exquisite light armor, strange flower crowns, bows, and swords on their backs immediately surrounded them before they could react. They were all young female elves. They had slender figures, exquisite faces, light green eyes, and pointed ears. They looked like one in a million beauties among ordinary people. The lords brought by Zhou Zhou were stunned when they saw so many elves. Some of the lords even had infatuation in their eyes. One had to know that they had all been enhanced by beauty, but even so, a large portion of them were not even as good-looking as these elves. It could be seen how exaggerated their appearance and figures were. Only Zhou Zhou could firmly crush the looks of these elves with his celestial appearance. Some of the elves looked at Zhou Zhou with beautiful light green eyes that lit up. The elves were a race that loved beauty. Many elves would even use appearance as the criteria when choosing their spouse. Therefore, Zhou Zhou's stunning face captured the hearts of many elves the moment he appeared in front of them. Even the captain of the Elven Guards looked at Zhou Zhou's appearance and was stunned for a moment before coming back to her senses. You must be the king of the blazing Sun Kingdom. Please follow me. We need to transfer to another spatial teleportation array and head to the Elven Imperial City first. Her Majesty is waiting for you. The captain of the guards said politely. Sure. Zhou Zhou nodded. Then, he called for everyone to walk down from the spatial teleportation array. Thick spatial power erupted, forming a spatial passageway with endless suction behind it, directly sucking it into the spatial rift. The captain of the guards frowned slightly, but she did not say anything and led everyone to another spatial teleportation array. On the way, Zhou Zhou glanced at the distant city wall. This Whisper City was not inferior to the blazing Sun Kingdom. But even so, he could also hear shouts and battle sounds from afar. He could even clearly hear the roars of the scarlet monsters. Zhou Zhou's heart turned slightly solemn. When Zhou Zhou and the others arrived, they were immediately shocked by the scene. All kinds of natural scenery fused perfectly with the various buildings in the elven style. Ancient trees and buildings, more than 10,000 meters tall, could be seen everywhere. All kinds of civilization wonders and special buildings were dazzling, generously showing the terrifying foundation of this empire that had developed for tens of thousands of years. There were strange flowers, strange plants, people of foreign race life forms, and many things that they had never heard or seen before. However, this was not the most shocking thing. There were two things that shocked him the most. One was a golden ancient tree that was tens of thousands of meters tall. It shot into the sky and covered the sky. The golden crown that covered the entire elven imperial city was like a heavenly canopy given by the god spirit, protecting the entire elven imperial city and countless elven citizens. What shocked everyone was that they saw a star, an incomparably huge star. The star was even larger than this divine tree. It stood tall in the sky and emitted a majestic life aura. If one listened carefully, they could even hear the holy songs of the god spirits chanting softly. Everyone was so shocked that they did not know what to say. Even Zhou Zhou did not speak for a moment. However, at the same time, the bloodline inheritances from the various bloodline races in his mind were also quickly flipping through the information. They told him about the origin of this divine tree and that star almost immediately. Elven Mother Tree, Abigail. The true god tier of fertility and breeding. Octavel's divine kingdom star. Zhou Zhou muttered under his breath. He was shocked. It was one thing for his bloodline to record such inheritances, but seeing them with his own eyes in reality was another matter. Especially the latter. That was a true god tier existence. If the master god tier did not appear, the true god tier would be the overlord of this world. He did not expect the Elven Empire to be protected by a true god tier. It seemed that the rumors were right. This generation of Elven Empress indeed had hope of building the Elven Empire into an Elven divine kingdom. This was because the hardest and most important thing about building a divine kingdom was to have 3 true god tier existences protect their country. Everything was difficult at the beginning. Since there was already one, the next 2 would not be very difficult. At this moment, the captain of the guard who had brought them here had wanted to introduce their elven capital to Zhou Zhou and the others, especially the Elven Mother Tree and the divine kingdom star in the sky. However, when she heard Zhou Zhou's whisper, she looked a little surprised. This human lord from the unknown cerulean planet actually knew about this. It had to be known that even many veteran kingdoms might not know what was going on with the Elven Mother Tree and the Divine Kingdom Star because the various forces had always been very conservative. This human lord could actually tell the details immediately and even recognized which god spirit the god spirit star came from. Even ordinary high-level bloodline races might not be able to compare to such knowledge. She originally looked down on these country bumpkin lords from the cerulean planet. It was just that she pretended to be polite on the surface and held herself in high regard, so she did not show it. However, she no longer harbored that contempt now. It seemed that the reason why this human lord could obtain the title of the strongest lord of all races was indeed not because of luck. Everyone continued to walk towards the imperial palace. "May I ask how I should address you?" Zhou Zhou asked the captain after coming back to his senses. "My name is Ali, the captain of the 3rd Guards of the Imperial Palace." Ali said casually. "My name is Zhou Zhou." Zhou Zhou smiled and said. After that, everyone went all the way to the Imperial Palace and quickly saw the original Elven Empress, Elizariel, sitting cross-legged on the throne. Nonetheless, only Zhou Zhou met the Empress again. As for the others, they waited at the entrance of the hall for the time being. "Your Majesty, the King of the Blazing Sun has been brought here," Ali said respectfully. "Good work. You can leave." The Elven Empress, who was wearing a gorgeous resplendent dress and had extremely beautiful facial features, said calmly. "Yes, Your Majesty," Ali said respectfully and left quietly. "Greetings, Your Majesty," Zhou Zhou said respectfully. This was the Empress who ruled the entire elves. It was not embarrassing to be polite. There's no need to be so polite. Since you've joined my Elven Empire faction, we're considered friends. You should need faction points, right? I have a quest that you should be interested in. It depends on whether you're confident enough to take it. Elizariel went straight to the point. "What is it?" Zhou Zhou asked cautiously. "There's a ruin of the divine battlefield in the territory of our Elven Empire. Every time a war breaks out, this ruins of the God War can gather majestic life and death power to open its door. At that time, the living beings from the outside world can enter and search for the treasures left behind in the ruins of the God War battlefield. I want you to enter and retrieve one of the divine artifact fragments of the true God tier. Then, bring it back to me." As long as you can complete this matter, I won't be stingy with the reward. Moreover, I can distribute faction points to you to the greatest extent, making you almost 100% the king of lords in our Elven Empire's camp. As for your Lord of all races faction points ranking, I will also do my best to help you increase your ranking. However, what rank you can stay in the end will depend on your strength. How about that? The Empress suggested calmly. It was as if she knew the content of the activities of the Lord of all races very well. Zhou Zhou was not surprised. With this Empress status, it was too easy for her to understand such information. He looked at the mission notification that had just appeared in front of him. Elven Empire Camp, Original Empress Elizariel has issued a faction quest to you. Alliance name, Lost True God Tier Divine Artifact Fragment. Quality of quest, Legendary Tier Advanced Grade, Highest, Unique. Quest description. In the territory of the Elven Empire, there is a battlefield of the gods that involves the battle of the god spirits. This battlefield has been completely closed off for tens of thousands of years. Only when a vast amount of vitality and death energy gathers will a world fissure open on this battlefield, allowing life forms from the outside world to enter. You need to enter the world fissure on the day it opens and obtain the true god tier intermediate grade divine artifact fragment, Spirit Nurturing Stone Seed. Hand it to the original Elven Empress, and you will receive a large number of rewards. Quest reward, 300 million faction points, diplomatic relations with the Elven Empire to be upgraded to the level of Admiration, a nature child elf bloodline of high-level god-tier advanced grade. The loyalty of 10,000 nature elves, 10,000 legendary tier mist cores, the friendship of the original Elven Empress, Elizariel. At the same time, Elizariel will help you increase your ranking in the King of 10,000 Kings event. What generous rewards! Zhou Zhou looked at the reward and could not help but be a little surprised. This reward was much richer than the reward given to him by the Night Empire. However, his expression became serious again. Given the size of the Elven Empire, the fact that it could take out so many rewards as rewards for the faction quests also showed how difficult this faction quest was. It was probably several times, or even more difficult than the Night Empire's faction mission. If I can't get the divine artifact fragment you want, can I give up on this mission? Zhou Zhou asked first. Of course. However, if you give up the quest, I won't help you increase your ranking in this King of 10,000 Kings event. When the time comes, you will only be like the other lords of the Elven Empire's camp and find your own faction quest to obtain faction points as a reward. Elizariel said. Of course. Then I'm willing to accept this faction quest. Zhou Zhou nodded. With that, he directly accepted this mission. When will this divine battlefield you mentioned be opened? Where is it? He immediately asked after accepting the quest. Now that the Scarlet Lord's faction has just attacked, the life and death energy accumulated is not enough. Normally speaking, it will take at least 10 days for the divine battlefield to absorb enough life force and death energy to open the world fissure and trance. However, I've already sent the various armies of the Elven Empire to speed up the destruction of the Scarlet forces near the Empire. It should be enough to open the entrance to the divine battlefield after destroying 2 to 3 Scarlet Empires or 200 to 300 Crimson Kingdoms. Don't worry. At that time, I will send my subordinates to inform you of the time and location. You can look for other faction quests to complete during this period. At this point, Elizariel flipped her right hand, and a golden token appeared in her palm. The golden token was engraved with the tree patterns of the Elven Mother Tree. She waved her hand gently, and the token flew over and landed on Zhou Zhou's injuries. This is the Elven Holy Token. Only 10 of them are distributed in the entire Elven Empire. I'll lend it to you for a month. During this period, you can go to the major cities of the Elven Empire to find the faction quest publisher. When the time comes, show this token in front of them and they will allow you to accept any level of faction quests without the corresponding faction level requirements. If you have nothing to do, you can do these small quests, she said casually. Thank you, Your Majesty. Zhou Zhou was overjoyed. Then, he looked at the other party's indifferent face and hesitated for a moment before saying, Your Majesty, you don't seem nervous about the tribulation of all races this time? Nervous? Elizariel chuckled. Don't compare our elven empire to those other small empires. This tribulation of all races event can indeed be considered a calamity for the other empires. After this tribulation of all races event, countless kingdoms and even empires are destined to die in this calamity. But it's only a little troublesome to our elven empire. Moreover, it can also be said to be a huge opportunity. An opportunity? Zhou Zhou was stunned. Imichim, don't tell me you think that only the lords of all races will obtain a reward from the supreme will in this event? As long as we, the kingdoms and empires who participated, perform well in this tribulation of all races, we will also obtain the reward of the supreme will. Elizariel replied smilingly. I see. Zhou Zhou was enlightened. No wonder he did not see any resentment on the faces of the people from the Night Empire and the Elven Empire when facing lords of all races like them. After all, according to the event introduction, even though the Crimson Overlord looked down on them, the sudden attack of endless Scarlet factions was more or less related to them. He was really not surprised if these kingdom factions and empire factions were resentful towards them because of this. However, he did not see any resentment on their faces after arriving at the Night Empire and the Elven Empire. Previously, he thought that it was because the other party did not understand the reason why the Scarlet faction was attacking. He finally understood. It turned out that they could also obtain benefits that belonged to them in this calamity. After that, he told Elizariel about letting his lords join the Elven Empire. Elizariel agreed readily. Then, Zhou Zhou thought for a moment and told him that he had also accepted a faction quest from the Night Empire. The Night Empire's faction quest is very difficult, which is why I want to ask for your help. This help can be treated as a reward paid in advance. If you think I might not be able to complete the faction quest you gave me, I can also use Mist Course to hire the experts of the Elven Empire to help us pass this mission. I wonder if your majesty is willing. Zhou Zhou boldly voiced his request. Zhou Zhou looked at the Elven Empress. Zhou Zhou was confident that he could complete the Night Empire's faction quest because of some trump cards. However, he was not confident that he could complete it without any accidents. Now that there was such a chance to ask for help, he naturally would not give up. You want to make an advance for the reward before completing the quest I gave you. The Elven Empress looked at Zhou Zhou with no sign of anger. Aren't you quite thick-skinned? Zhou Zhou's expression did not change at all. So what if he was mocked? The most important thing was to reduce the losses of the soldiers and increase the benefits they obtained. I won't give you the faction quest reward in advance. However, you can invite the experts of our Elven Empire if you have enough Mist Cores. How many you can hire will depend on your ability, the Elven Empress said calmly. Even so, she did not think that the other party could invite many Elven experts. A lord faction of all races that had just arrived in the High Continent and developed for less than a month. No matter how well he developed, how many Mist Cores could he save up? He would probably be overstretched after hiring one or two experts. Zhou Zhou was overjoyed. What he wanted was the Empress' permission, without which, the experts of the Elven Empire might not even let him in, not to mention inviting him to do the faction quests. Thank you, Your Majesty, Zhou Zhou immediately said. The Elven Empress nodded and waved her hand. Zhou Zhou understood and left. In a temporarily arranged palace. When Zhou Zhou was led here by Ali, he saw Qi Xintian, Suan, and the Lords of the Star Alliance. Other than that, he also saw an old friend. It was the first-generation blood fire arrow elf, Nadia. Zhou Zhou looked at her in surprise. His Majesty called me over. From today onwards, I will follow you as an assistant until the tribulation of all races ends. At the same time, I will be in charge of being your liaison with Her Majesty. You can tell me your needs when you're preparing to take on the faction quests. I'll help you if I can. If I can't, I can also contact Her Majesty directly and see if she can help. Nadia smiled. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly, looking a little impish. Are you that close? Zhou Zhou was delighted. He was just worried about not knowing which elven expert to start looking for. It was much easier for him to find them with Nadia around. Do you know where the god-tier experts who serve the Elven Empire live? Especially those who are free now. Zhou Zhou immediately asked. I know. Nadia was stunned for a moment before nodding. As a hero of the Elven Empire, she was quite liked by the Empress, so she knew such things. Currently, there are only 2 god-tier experts who have not been sent out by Her Majesty and are still resting in the Elven Empire. One is Lord Zhou Zhou, god of the Snowfield and White Wolf, a mid-level god-tier elementary grade expert. The other is Lord Heros, the god of Blazing Sun and Burns, a high-level god-tier elementary grade expert. They are all resting in their shrines. However, the shrines are in the deepest part of the Imperial Palace. God spirits usually don't come out. Even if we go over, I'm afraid the god attendants in charge of guarding won't let us pass easily. Nadia looked hesitant and ashamed. She had just said that she wanted to help, but she did not expect herself to be a little powerless now. However, there was no choice. God spirits were also revered existences in the Elven Empire. Even the Elven Empress had to be polite to the weakest low-tier deity-level god spirits, let alone an ordinary elven hero like her. Don't worry about that. The Empress gave this to me. I should be able to see the 2 god spirits with this token, right? Zhou Zhou took out the Elven Holy Token and said with a smile, Her Majesty actually gave you this token? Nadia was shocked when she saw the Elven Holy Token in Zhou Zhou's hand. It's also for convenience. Zhou Zhou smiled. Of course you can with this token, Nadia said without hesitation. The effect of the Elven Holy Token in the Elven Empire was almost equivalent to the Empress's personal arrival. Only a minister whom the Empress trusted extremely could have this token in a short period of time. They had to return it after using it too. With it in his hands, Zhou Zhou could almost do whatever he wanted in the Elven Empire. It was naturally simple to see the 2 god spirits idle at home. It's good to be able to see them. Time is tight. Lead the way now, Zhou Zhou said. Since there were only 2 god spirits in the Elven capital, he could only try his best to invite these 2 god spirits over to protect him. As for the price, Zhou Zhou was already prepared. It was guaranteed that the 2 god spirits would not be able to refuse. At a shrine in the depths of the Imperial Palace, Zhou Zhou looked at the white towering and majestic building in front of him. He could vaguely feel the coldness like winter from inside. Moreover, there was an existence emitting an extremely huge life aura living inside. This is the shrine of the god of the Snowfield and White Wolf, Lord Zhou Zhou, Nadia said. Zhou Zhou nodded. Then, he walked over and arrived at the entrance of the shrine. 2 god attendants wearing snow-white thick cotton clothes with a 2 to 3 meter tall white wolf lying beside them were guarding this place. Zhou Zhou could tell their strength at a glance. Epic tier elementary grade. He raised his eyebrows slightly. This is the power of the Elven Empire's god spirits? An epic tier elementary grade expert is actually used as a gatekeeper? Halt! Don't you know that this is Lord Zhou Zhou's shrine? The 2 god attendants immediately said sternly when they saw Zhou Zhou arrive at the door. Please pass on the message that this junior, the Lord of the Blazing Sun, wishes to see Lord Zhou Zhou. I have something to discuss. Zhou Zhou took out the Elven Holy Token and said with a smile. The 2 god attendants originally wanted to shout at this young man to retreat. Do you think you can see a god spirit just because you want to? However, the 2 of them were stunned when they saw the golden token in Zhou Zhou's hand. Let me see. The god attendant on his left said coldly. Her attitude was much better than before. Zhou Zhou handed it over. The god attendant took it and flipped through it for a while. Then, she showed it to the other god attendant. When they looked up again, the 2 of them looked at Zhou Zhou in obvious surprise. It was actually a real Elven Holy Token? What right did this human have to be given this privileged token by the Empress? Lord of the Blazing Sun. Could it be the recently famous human lord? At the thought of this, the 2 of them looked at each other and immediately understood what the other was thinking. Please follow me. The god attendant on the left said politely. Zhou Zhou nodded and turned to look at Nadia. Wait for me. Sure. Nadia nodded. Zhou Zhou did not say anything else and entered the shrine with the god attendant. Not long after they entered, the other god attendant guarding the door hesitated for a long time before she could not help but ask, Was that human lord just now the one who won the strongest lord of all races at the event arranged by the Supreme Will? Exactly. TSK. Impressive. I only heard of him in the past. I didn't expect to see him in person today. He's really amazing to be able to obtain the title of the strongest lord of all races from so many powerful lords with the foundation of the human race. The god attendant sighed. Nadia looked at her drastic change in attitude and admired Zhou Zhou very much. For some reason, a smile appeared on her face and she felt inexplicably happy. However, when she thought about how he already had Leia, she could not help but feel disappointed.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.